So, is everybody having a good time today? Yeah? That's good. I'm going to speak to you a little bit I'll give you some statistics and things like that, and then I'll go into Kelsey's story after that. Just some facts here. Crashes and cell phones. These are some risks if you're behind the wheel of a car and driving. If you're reading, you're 3.4 times more likely to get into a crash. If you're reaching for an object like you dropped your cell phone and you're reaching for it, you're 8.8 times more likely to get into a crash. Turning around in the seat to grab your cell phone that's in the back seat, 8.8 times. Talking on a cell phone, you're 4 times, and texting is anywhere from 8 to 23 times more likely to get into a crash while you're behind the wheel of the car. There's been several studies done on using a cell phone and distracted driving. There's 3 different components, distractions. There's visual, mechanical, and cognitive. Visual, obviously, is you're not looking where you're going, right? My husband does that. It annoys me. Mechanical, both hands aren't on the wheels, right? And cognitive. Cognitive is where your mind is not on the driving. And cognitive lasts longer than the mechanical or the visual. Selective attention and switching. This is when the brain is overloaded with 2 different things going on. When you're talking on a cell phone or you're texting with a cell phone, that is one distraction, and you're driving the car is another thing that you're doing. When you're doing this, your brain makes one of those 2 a primary. The other becomes a secondary task. So if you're talking on the phone, guess what becomes the primary task? The phone, and you're not paying attention to your driving. And you have to remember that the cognitive lasts much longer than the mechanical or the visual. You take your eyes off the road, generally it's just for a second and you come back, right? Talking on the phone, you're on a conversation, you could be talking for an hour and a half. So they did some studies. They put somebody in an MRI and determined when they were driving the car what part of their brain lit up. And as you see in that top picture, that's driving only. That's how much of the brain's activity was going on just driving the car. Then they were given a cell phone and they had to talk while they were driving. Look how much brain function reduced. They say up to 40% once you added the cell phone to it. So it obviously does make a difference when you're using a cell phone and you're behind the wheel of the car. In this picture here, it shows how people talking on their cell phone, they get what's called tunnel vision. Has anybody here ever been playing a video game, or you're watching a movie and your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad are standing right next to you, and you're so concentrated on that game and so focused on that game or movie, you don't hear them? Yes, that's tunnel vision. And guess what? When you're talking on a cell phone and you're driving the car, you may not realize it, but that's what you're doing. This is how you're supposed to see everything. See, you can see little Johnny off to the right. You can see all around you, right? My driver's ed teacher told me once that a best driver is one where their eyes are constantly scanning the road and they are aware of what's going on around them. You bring that cell phone in, look at what happens. The side view goes away, and you get that tunnel vision. Inattention blindness occurs when your mind becomes preoccupied with a cell phone conversation. Like the pictures previously on here, it reduces your spatial recognition. You don't see your peripheral view. You reduce reaction time to danger. You're so focused on the cell phone conversation that you could have a little boy run out chasing a ball, and your reaction time to that is much slower, if you even react at all. I know stories of little girls, friends of mine I've met over the last 3 years, where a little girl was riding her bike home, and a lady was on her cell phone and hit the little girl as she was just 2 houses away from her house, and didn't realize at first that she had hit a little 8-year-old girl riding her bike. She was talking on the cell phone, had that conversation, so much into that conversation, she had that spatial and that focus on what was straight ahead, she didn't see the little girl. Killed her. Less visual detail in your environment, like I just said. You increase lane departures. Driving down here, I've seen so many people texting and talking on the phone, going in and out of their lane and slowing down, going fast. Those are all signs of being distracted. So, anybody here know the movie or the show Mythbusters? Yeah. Do y'all watch it? Yeah. Have you seen the episode where they compare cell phone use and drunk driving? Has anybody seen that episode? Google it. It'll come up. Just Google it. What they did is they took cell phones, and they were out on a track, and you had to talk on the cell phone and drive at the same time. And then they had some measurings on how to do it with cones out there. They're hitting cones and stuff. And then they gave them alcohol to make them legally drunk. And they did the same thing. And guess what? They were poorer at driving the car when they were talking on the phone than they were when they were legally drunk. That does not tell you you can go out and drink and drive. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But what I'm saying is that cell phone use is just as or more dangerous to it. There's no difference between the handheld and the hands-free. They had slower reaction times when you're talking on the phone, similar to drunk drivers. Were more likely to crash than drivers with when they were legally drunk. They drove slower in traffic. I mean, all those things, the same things are happening with all of these different things that are going out to prove that cell phone use is dangerous. So let's get to some teen facts. Do we all know that car accidents are the #1 cause of death in teenagers? Did we know that? Yeah. I did not know that when my daughter passed away. I was floored, totally floored, when I found out that that was the #1 killer of young adults. The first 6 months / 3,000 miles is especially risky for new drivers. Did you all know that? I didn't know that either. My daughter had her driver's license 3 months before she passed away. Remember I said you're 4 times more likely to get in a car accident if you're talking on your phone? Just being a new driver, you're 3 times more likely to get into a car accident. Just being a new driver. Why do you think? Inexperience. We have snow up here, right? We have freezing rain, right? You have to learn how to handle the car and not be on the phone. 15 crashes per day involve 15 to 20-year-olds. 16 to 17-year-olds' death by accidents are up 19% since the first 6 months of 2012. So what that's saying is that the crash rate's getting higher. Texting handheld use is highest amongst the ages of 16 to 24. These are some of the strategies that I've come up with. Educate. That's why we have things like this. You know, I can say that in the last 3 years that I've been doing this, the kids are really listening. Give yourselves a hand. You're really, really listening. You guys are doing peer-to-peer groups throughout the state. You guys are telling your parents, put your phone away. I am so proud of you guys. We have to get the older people, and I don't mean any disrespect, but we got to get the older people to do what we do. But you guys are doing a lot better than you were 3 years ago. You're educating everybody, and I'm very thankful for that. Legislation, that's why we have Kelsey's Law, texting law, Should there be a total ban on the phone for everybody behind the wheel of a car? In law enforcement, those are things that we have to do. Technology. They have cars that drive themselves now that they're testing. So some takeaways from here, I'll quickly go through these. You need your full attention at the task, and that's driving. So put the phones away. Hands-free is no different. It's not whether you have your hand on the wheel or not. It's that cognitive thing, remember? Legislation enforcement are a big key. Public support, and teens you're at the highest risk. Stop using your cell phone. Impairment equals impairment, whether it is alcohol impaired or if you are impaired by using your phone. So why do I do this? May 2nd, 1992, I was honored by giving birth to two beautiful young girls, twins. Courtney was born at 2:23 a.m. and Kelsey was born at 2:30 a.m. The best day of my life. All I wanted to do was be a mom. And here I had two beautiful little girls that I could take care of for the rest of their lives. They were always together. Kelsey was the type of girl that loved everybody. She didn't care who you were, if you were poor, if you were rich. She did not care who you were at all. She liked you. She loved to hug on. The bottom picture there on the right-hand side, that's Kelsey feeding Courtney her breakfast. She used to do it all the time, and I'd tell Kelsey, or Courtney, now you feed Kelsey. And Courtney'd go, no. Because Courtney was the little princess. But they were always together. They were inseparable. High school, they were on Palms together. They did a powder puff game. You guys do powder puff games here? Yes, I actually went to one school where they don't do it. They don't have powder puff games. But she played in the powder puff game herself. Courtney was the coach for the cheerleaders. Do the boys become the cheerleaders, the football players? Yeah. These are a few of the senior pictures that we took. The girls asked me, Mom, would you take our senior pictures? You know what the first thing I thought of? I just saved myself $4,000 because I don't have to pay somebody to do it. So they let me do it. The one in the upper corner here and the one in the lower corner, I did not take them. I found them after Kelsey passed away. She took those up herself. I guess they're called selfies now. So Kelsey was doing selfies way back in 2009. Then came January 24th, 2010 at 3:37 in the afternoon. I received a phone call from Kelsey's friend Stacy. And Stacy informed me that Kelsey was in a car accident. And so I said, okay, where are you? She said, we're down by the high school. And I said, okay, you're down by the high school, can't be that bad. She informed me that it was really bad. I said, well, did she roll the car? And she said, no, didn't roll the car. So I'm thinking, down by the high school, didn't roll the car. Stacy's young, she's just, upset. So I informed Stacy we were on our way. My husband and I, we only lived a couple miles. I heard someone speaking earlier about accidents happen within the first, how far of your house? Mile? Kelsey was only a couple miles, if that, from where we live. We drove, and as we turned the corner onto the road where she was, there was a hill. And then as we were at the top of the hill, I could see down at the bottom quite a ways, there was a whole bunch of EMS vehicles. There was a state police, the sheriff's department, city police were there, 2 fire trucks, an ambulance. They had the whole road blocked off. And so at that moment, my heart sank, and I knew this is not good. To have that many vehicles there, emergency vehicles there, that there was something seriously wrong. So I kept telling my husband to drive faster, and he kept telling me that he couldn't. When we reached the accident scene, I know I jumped out of the car before it was completely stopped. There was a sheriff's deputy standing there, and he kind of stopped me, and I said, "But that's my daughter. I have to go." He put his hands down, and the look on his face was just pure horror. And as I was able to go out around him, this is what I saw. But at the time I was there, my daughter was still in the car, because I was at the scene within minutes of the accident happening. They hadn't taken her to the hospital yet. They hadn't even gotten her out of the car. Kids, this is a 35-mile-an-hour impact on a side road by the high school. How many here text or talk on their phone in town and think they're not going to get hurt or get killed? 35 miles an hour, and she was killed instantly. The story goes, Kelsey was on her way home from Stacy's house. Her best friend Stacy was following her that day and saw everything happen and rushed to the door to try and wake up her friend. But they were on their way to bring Kelsey's car home so they could go to Walmart to have a Coke Freezy. Kelsey, ironically, did not like to drive. Whenever she could ride with somebody else, she did. She never liked to drive at all. Kelsey was talking on the phone. I know she was tailgating the slower moving vehicle that was ahead of her. I talked to the person. I actually graduated from high school with him. He told me that she was tailgating him. She went out to pass, not realizing there was another car coming. And when she did realize, her last words to the person on the phone before she hung up was, "Oh shit, I'm gonna crash." So she knew she was in trouble. She hung up the phone, she threw it in the back seat, because that's where we found it. She was able to pass the slower moving vehicle, but once she got in, she clipped the snowbank. And what do new drivers do that we tell them a million times not to do? She overcorrected, tried to come back, and when she did, it threw the car into the path of an oncoming SUV, which T-boned her. So I thought to myself about a year later, what in the world am I supposed to do now? What would Kelsey do? And I can tell you right now, she would be the first person standing up here saying to you kids, don't make the stupid mistake that I made that took my life. But she's not here to do it, but Mama is. So don't make the stupid mistake and use your cell phone while you're driving your car. Then I decided I needed to get a law passed to prevent level 1 and level 2 drivers from using their cell phone while they're driving. And that, as we know, is Kelsey's Law. And it became effective March 28th of 2013. There's a really cool thing about this law. That law, it became Public Act 592. Now that may not mean anything to you guys, but Courtney and Kelsey were born May, which is the 5th month of 1992. So you get your 592. A sign? Maybe someday we'll know. This is Courtney at her graduation. All they wanted to do was graduate together. Courtney's in the front seat there. They had one chair left that this class wanted for Kelsey, and so Kelsey's hat is on there. Courtney wore Kelsey's gown. She wore 2 tassels, her tassel and Kelsey's tassel. She wore Kelsey's BPA cords. And when they were told to turn your tassels, she turned both tassels because in her mind, Kelsey graduated with her. All I wanted to do was be a mom and take care of my kids. This is the only thing I have left of taking care of my Cal. I go to her gravesite. Kids bring lots of stuff. I have Windex in my car and paper towels that I keep
to polish off her headstone so there's no spots on it. All because of a 6-second phone call. All because of a preventable accident. This is all I have left. May 2nd was last Friday. Kelsey would have been 22. So we lifted off 22 balloons for her 22nd birthday at her gravesite. And there she is. Her senior year, the look on her face, you could tell that she was so happy. She was so high on life. She was so excited to graduate from high school and begin a new life. She was my little 4'11" firecracker. She was my hugger. At 17, she didn't care if people made fun of her. She would run back into bed with her mom and snuggle up to me. She didn't care. And there she is, her senior picture that went into the yearbook that she never got to see. You know, on January 24th of 2010, I lost a daughter. But I've gained thousands more kids in every one of you and the others that I speak to. Because I feel it's my responsibility now to take care of you and tell you what I didn't know and couldn't tell my daughter back then. So I'm begging you from the bottom of my heart to please put those phones away. It's not worth it, kids. It's just not worth it. Thank you.